And welcome into the Whispering Atheist here on YouTube. I'm your host, Lisa, and today we're going to take a look at Street Epistemology, a new way to talk to people of faith. It's based on the book by Dr. Peter Boghossian, A Manual for Creating Atheists. And I'd like to welcome in my co-host, Daniel, at this time. Welcome, Daniel.
Hi, good to be here again. So, yeah, I'm really interested in this topic, and I haven't read the Peter Boghossian book, A Manual for Creating Atheists, but I have listened to a lot of content on YouTube. And so I had a few questions, in just a way to kind of clarify the topic. And just to kind of start off, it lays it out, street epistemology, but maybe before we jump into street epistemology, I kind of just want to know get this idea of what is epistemology and how is that related to faith, and get that lined up first.
Okay, well, let's talk about epistemology. It's the study of knowledge, and it's how we know what we know or how we come to knowledge. And there's some good methods that you can use, such as skepticism, reason, logic, observation, or verifying the facts. Now, faith is actually an epistemology. However, it's an unreliable method where people come to knowledge claims, or a belief without using skepticism, reason, logic, observation, or the verification of facts. Now, faith as a method of epistemology is really best suited for belief in the supernatural or spiritual or the make-believe world, where evidence is non-existent or unobservable. But sometimes it's also applied to understanding the real world when evidence is lacking, or when someone ignores the evidence in favor of faith.
Yeah, I like that, the idea that faith as an epistemology is not usually something that even when I was a believer would have considered, that I'm coming to these large knowledge claims using faith. Okay, so now that we have a clearer idea, how does that compare to what Peter Boghossian is trying to do when he refers to street epistemology?
Okay, street epistemology is a way to move the conversation from talking about God or religion to talking about how we come to knowledge in the real world. It's used in these casual conversations with people of faith, and it works really well because it doesn't target God or religion or a person's faith community. So it doesn't directly try to change what a person believes, but in how they form their beliefs by focusing on how we come to know what we claim we know, and then moving a person from using unreason or faith as their epistemology to using good epistemological by using a good epistemology or a good method, let's say that, such as the skepticism, the logic, the reason, and then helping them to move or align their beliefs with the evidence or reality that's in the real world.
So it sounds like just a way to say, hey, is faith a good way to come to knowledge, if I'm understanding the street epistemology concept, and then saying, is that actually a good way to have this belief system? Okay, so why should anyone? Why do we want to talk someone out of faith as an epistemology?
Well, that's a really good question. What we want to do is help everyone use good methods of coming to knowledge that lead to believing in more true things than in false things, and then help people realize the harm that faith-based beliefs cause others when those beliefs are based on faith in the Bible or church doctrines. And some of those examples come right out of our public policies today, where these faith-based policies are hurting people who may not hold to the same belief system. And what happens is that you're oppressing their individual freedoms. And some of those examples would be the LGBT community, religious minorities, women, or non-believers or atheists. Secondly, we want to talk someone out of using faith as an epistemology in hopes that it would stop the spread of the faith virus. It's very important to show people how they came to faith during their childhood or their early teenage years when their critical thinking skills were not developed. or also to show how people come to faith in moments of crisis when the critical thinking skills are being suppressed because of a high negative emotional state.
Yeah, I really like that, the concept of the harm that having faith as a way to know something, how it can bring harm to, like you mentioned, the LGBT community, religious minorities, women, or atheists or non-believers or believers of different faith. And then on the second point, really, my epistemology or my faith was came number one when I was a childhood indoctrination. Then number two, I went through a crisis moment in my life and came back to my faith as kind of what I knew. So yeah, I wasn't really using reason or logic or this a different way to come to knowledge. Faith was just that default. Okay, so faith can do harm if as an epistemology. So let's look again at street epistemology, and what's that based on? Where's this idea originating from?
Okay, well, unlike street evangelism, which is based on faith in the Bible as a way to know something, street epistemology has its foundation in time-tested psychology and philosophy. So it uses the psychology of behavior change, or how people change their behavior by changing how they think. And it also uses the trans-theoretical model of change, especially the first three stages of changing behaviors or belief, which include the first stage, pre-contemplation, and that's when someone's not ready to change because they're satisfied with their behaviors or their beliefs. And then secondly, contemplation. That's when a person is getting ready to change, maybe because of doubt or they're unsatisfied with a certain behavior or a belief. And the third stage is preparation. That's when they're ready to change and they begin to develop some strategies to move away from the old behaviors or beliefs. So those are really important when it comes to street epistemology. You simply want to find out where the person is on those three stages and help them move through the stages until they have the ability to make the change in what they believe. And then when it comes to philosophy, street epistemology is based on the Socratic method of questioning, which is used to stimulate somebody's critical thinking and then help them to maybe see the world in a different way. So that's what street epistemology is based on. That's the foundation of it.
Okay, yeah, that does give some clarification. And notice how the way it's laid out is very academic. We're talking about the behavioral change model, the trans-theoretical model of change, and then the three first ways to move someone through this new way of thinking or formulating a belief. But how do you do this when you're just speaking with a family member or someone you run into on the street? What are some of the techniques that street epistemology applies when actually having these conversations with people in the real world?
Well, that's a good question, because that's really kind of where the rubber meets the road. And Dr. Boghossian gives some advice when you're talking with people who are using faith as a way to come to knowledge. And the first thing really is just meet people where they are, kind of find out where they're at. Are they pre-contemplation? Are they contemplation? Or are they preparation? Where are they at in the theoretical change or the theoretical model of change? And you provide a safe place for conversation. You're not having a debate. Secondly, take a look at faith as a virus and see that it's affecting the way that people think, so that you're not talking to someone as if they're unintelligent. You have to understand that the problem they're having is a problem of thinking. The way that they are coming to knowledge, they're using a poor epistemology. And there are three things always to remember in these conversations, and I can't really stress these enough, is that faith is not God. God is a conclusion based on a bad epistemology using faith as a method. And faith is not religion. Now, all religions use faith. So if you're able to remove faith, you could remove all religions from someone's life, but faith itself is not religion. And faith is not politics. That's the third thing to remember. So you don't want to get into conversations about politics because they only cause conflict and derail the conversation. Another good technique is to not bring up the facts when you're talking, especially to someone who is satisfied with what they believe. If they're in that pre-contemplation stage, you don't want to talk about the facts, because in that stage, they value their faith over all the facts that you could possibly give them, and the conversation will get bogged down. So you want to keep the focus on faith as a way of coming to knowledge, and then just avoid getting sidetracked by other topics. Always bring the conversation back to, hey, we're having a good conversation about faith. And another good tip is to divorce faith from morality. It's really important to show that it doesn't really matter what you believe in. You can be a good person regardless. Faith has this defense mechanism that says any challenge to faith is immoral. So you really want to show them that it doesn't matter if you believe in God or not. You can still have a moral life. That's something that's really important that you want to show them. So really the bottom line is that you just want to bring to their awareness that faith is nothing more than an unreliable way to come to knowledge. And that even includes this knowledge of God. So that's kind of street epistemology in a nutshell. If you want to know more, you know, it's a good thing to get the book and read it. He goes into much more detail than we have today, but that's kind of street epistemology in a nutshell, Daniel.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, no, and those last couple things you mentioned with morality or keeping faith, divorce from morality, is not something you want to probably focus on in the conversation, but really you're using that questioning of asking questions, sincere questions. And then one thing is, you know, maybe questioning their belief that morality can only come from a belief in something supernatural or beyond what we can observe. And then the last kind of idea around that is doubt as also being immoral. And really you're just trying to, you know, stop, question, and see, is this a good way to come to knowledge? And then that doubt kind of comes in. And maybe also acknowledging that doubt is a good thing. It's not a immoral way to approach your life or the way you orient your beliefs in the real world.
Yeah, it's a great technique. There are a lot of people out there that are on the streets and talking to friends and family, and they're using a very similar method here, or taking these techniques. And it's important, though, to understand why you're doing what you're doing. You're not trying to reason somebody out of their faith, but you're helping them to do it themselves by giving the tools that they need, showing them how that faith is an unreliable way to come to knowledge, and encouraging that skepticism, reason, logic, observation, and verifying of facts. And keep it friendly and supportive so that you can have another conversation. And speaking of conversations, we're going to have a conversation in the next video about what we both think about street epistemology. Great day. Bye-bye.